During Trump 1, we successfully enrolled my dog as a durable medical equipment company.
Really?
The world has changed dramatically because of ChatGPT. We've stopped over $2.5 billion from going out the door. Some of the physicians associated with that had as many as 30,000 patients that they were allegedly referring for.
Tune in for today's episode of the Leadership Lab Clarity Special Edition.
Thank you for joining another episode of the Leadership Lab with Asbel Montes. And this is our special edition series because we are here at our 5th annual User Summit in beautiful Laguna Beach, California. And it's all about data, doctors, and leadership through the eyes of the patient. That's our mantra here. But I am ecstatic that I have our keynote speaker, Kim Brandt, with me here on the podcast. Kim, thank you so much. And you literally just got in.
I literally rolled from the plane right here to the podcast.
And I am just ecstatic that you were able to be here. Here's what most people probably don't know. I met you for the first time when you were in Orrin Hatch's office.
Yes.
How long ago was that? Maybe
I started in 2011 with him. So I don't know exactly what year it was, but yeah, we've known each other probably 15 years.
And I remember going in there and you had your beautiful dog.
So it had to have been after 2015 because he's going to turn 11.
Yeah. So that's what I think it was 2015. I was trying to remember the time frame or what have you, but lots been happening. You've had a lot going on, but this has always been, with what you're focusing on now with fraud, waste, and abuse, has always been kind of your wheelhouse.
It's my passion.
And your passion. You can tell it comes through. And so tell me a little bit. Most people that are watching this are going to know about you, so I'm not going to go through those introductions or whatever. If you want to, just like I say, go, not Google anymore, go ChatGPT, who is Kim Brandt, right? But let's talk a little bit about fraud, waste, and abuse and the initiatives that are coming out. Donald Trump, our President Trump, made this a central theme of his State of the Union when he appointed VP Vance to really do a war on fraud. Now, there's a lot more than just fraud. There's also waste and abuse. So talk a little bit about some of these initiatives. Some of them have been your passion projects and some things like that. Chili cook-off. I love that concept that you did, but talk a little bit about that for Kim.
So one of the biggest priorities for me coming back, this is my 3rd tour at CMS, so I'm a glutton for punishment, apparently. But when Dr. Oz called to give me the pitch to come back, one of the things that I made him promise was that if I came back, he would let me go big on the fraud, waste, and abuse issues, because I felt like there was a lot that I wasn't able to get done, both with Senator Hatch's office and then when I was with Seema Verma working for her. That was undone. We just didn't get it done for a variety of reasons. And the fact is, the world has changed dramatically because of ChatGPT and things like that. The tools, the resources, they're just, it's game changing. And so Oz said, if you come back, I will let you. We'll make it a priority and we'll go big. So we started out that way. So when he came on board last year in April, we immediately started, we had kicked off a fraud war room focusing on Medicare claims data. And what we did was we put a bunch of analysts and a bunch of law enforcement people all in a virtual room, if you will, and had them analyzing claims data in real time before it got paid. So we were, instead of paying and chasing, which has been the old way of doing it, we were actually doing prevent and detect. So we'd figure out like that, there was a lab that was billing at 6 times the normal rate in Chicago, or that we had this ever-growing number of hospices in Los Angeles, or many other different things. And then what we started to do was take aggressive action against those, not after the payment, but before the payment. And as a result, since we launched it March 31st of last year until yesterday, we've stopped over $2.5 billion from going out the door. And we only look at like 5 to 7 providers a week. It's a very small number because it's very time intensive to do this, but these are the worst actors. And what I love is we're using artificial intelligence, machine learning, new tools to do that. And that's where the chili cook-off that you mentioned came into play. What was happening was a lot of people have a lot of ideas and a lot of people have new approaches to doing this. And every single person who came in to want to meet with me said, I can save you $2 billion. And I was like, well, that's great. But none of them could prove that they could save me $2 billion. And so what we decided to do was, rather than me meeting with hundreds of these people ad nauseum, we decided to put the money where their mouth was, so to speak, and have a competition. And so we did. We had over 200 people participate. We ended up with the top 10. And of those, 5 of them are working with us on various pilot projects that are ways, new, different approaches to do this. And that's what we wanted to do.
You know what I like about that you're creative, you're innovative, and you're disruptive. And as the COO of CMS, you're total operational. To come up with a process like that when you're seeing that, it's like, I want you to prove it.
Yep.
I was talking about this with my business partner about we have that same philosophy at our technology. We'll prove it all day long. I'll do it for free.
Yeah.
I'm going to prove and show you. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, which is what that is a very novel concept in government, Kim.
It is.
And so you're running this almost like you would run a business.
Well, and that's what Dr. Oz really sort of challenged all of us to do. If you look at our leadership at CMS, we have people who have built successful businesses. Chris Klomp, who built Collective Medical and ran a very successful, huge conglomerate sort of vertical structure thing, and has been on several boards and is a real tech entrepreneur. We have Dan Brillman, who started Unite Us, which was a services delivery type of company that has done amazing things for coordinating, all the Medicaid services that people need. So we had some people who came in from that outside perspective. I obviously have not been on the outside. I've been a career government person, but I really love the fact that Oz wanted all of us to think more entrepreneurially. And luckily for me, the 4 years between my second and third tours at CMS, I sat on several boards. I worked for a private equity company. I was a lobbyist for over 60 different companies. And it really gave me a whole new appreciation for what the private sector can bring to government in ways that, had I not had that, I don't think I ever could have.
And so you're seeing that synergy right now. So you guys are tapping into the private arena as well, saying they can maybe help us solve our problems a bit quicker and more efficient.
Exactly.
And so let me ask you this now, because I'm going to move into, I know you can't talk a lot about the Crush RFI piece of it, just because it's still in its infancy piece of it. But tell me what the intention around that is to do, because you guys are traveling all over and you're finding even a lot more.
Yeah, so with the Crush RFI, it sort of was the result of a lot of what we were seeing from the War Room. So with the War Room, what we were seeing was there were problems that we found where we didn't have the regulatory authority or the statutory authority to be able to take care of them or to address them. One of our biggest challenges is Medicare is an any willing provider payer. That means that it was set up so that literally anyone can get in. You mentioned my dog earlier. During Trump 1, we successfully enrolled my dog as a durable medical equipment company.
Really?
And then as a result of that, we made additional regulations to make it harder so you couldn't do that. But we were able, using my home address, banking information, and everything else, to enroll my dog as a DME supplier. And so it's something where, it's kind of, we wanted to make it so that there was a much higher barrier to entry for people to do that, because for hospice, DME, home health, it's not as high as it probably could or should be. But we also are not allowed to say, you know what, Asbel, we think you're a good guy, and I know you want to open a hospice, but we already have 1,100 other hospices here in LA County. Do we really need another hospice? We don't have the ability to do that. So the point of the RFI was to ask people, what are the tools that we should be using? What are the things that we should be thinking about to be able to get at this from a different perspective? We received over 800 comments. We're working our way through them. Some of them were things we had already thought about. Some of them are really innovative. I personally read about half of them thus far. I'm going to read all of them because I'm really interested to see what people have to say. But our team is really taking it seriously and is bucketing the different ideas. And our goal is to put out then, obviously, a regulation, a rule, when it's all done, that will hopefully incorporate everything that we can do administratively, and then maybe give Congress some ideas of things that they could do, like maybe allow us to say, you know what, we don't have to let people in when the market is oversaturated. Or maybe we think about things like lessening the claims window. It's still a year? Do we need it to be a year? Could it be 6 months? Having it a year means people can defraud us more effectively. So it's things like that we're hoping to get out of it. And it was also helpful because people told us about new and different ways to look at things. Like, here's things we think you should do to make it harder to enroll as a provider, or to make it so that you could trust but verify. Not necessarily the administrative burden, but like, here are things that you could do that we already have to do, that states require us to do, or that medical societies require us to do. If you all would just do that too, that would help.
Because it was kind of consistency through it, because states were doing some unique stuff.
Exactly.
Societies were doing. So I love it that you guys are getting that input. How long do you think it's going to take you to run through that and get something
We're
out?
hoping to have something out in the fall. So whether that's a proposed rule or a summary of proposed changes, can't really say.
Sure.
Sure. It's a little TBD, but
Sure.
the hope is that by the end of the fall, we'll be able to at least be able to give a signal as to the types of things that we're hoping to focus on. And then, of course, as with anything that we do, we need to do notice and comment rulemaking. And so that'll be the chance for people to really weigh in.
Sure. And so I'm going to pivot and switch the subject right now, because right now you're going everywhere. There's been a lot of stuff that you guys have looked at in the home health arena. DME's back on the radar again. And also, it was identified in a letter that went to the governor of New York. And I know that, of course, I'm in transportation and ambulance and all that. And I know NEAT has been identified, or non-emergency medical transportation.
Yep,
so talk
exactly.
a little bit about what the data is telling you, why you're focused on that, because
Sure.
there seems to be some...
So I think what the data is showing us is that nationally we've got several pockets of things that are problems. Hospice is a huge problem out here in the West. Nevada and LA and then Texas are the top 3 states for hospice right at the moment. Our data shows us that those 3 states are the ones where we have the highest number of hospices that are having discharge rates of greater than, in some cases, 80%. So live discharge, which seems very high. In Nevada, for instance, the average is 41%. So in terms of people, so it's a fairly, it's showing, again, not saying that people need to die when they're on hospice, but you would expect higher
Right.
percentages.
Sure.
And so that's something that we've been very focused on, because the numbers just show, and it showed that when we shut them down, they moved elsewhere. It's like whack-a-mole. You shut them down in California, they're going to Nevada, they're going to Arizona, et cetera. Home health, similarly. It's a relatively easy thing to enroll as a home health provider. And that's another one where the payment rates are skewed as a result of there being so many of these false front home health, if you will. So we've been seeing that. We've also been seeing a lot of laboratory services. Actually, Chicago is number 1 for laboratory services right now in terms of genetic testing and other types of services that people are being billed for that they're not actually getting. And then it's the home and community-based services, the personal care services, the non-emergency medical transport, the adult daycares, things like that, autism, behavioral health. All of those things are things where we're seeing much higher than normal billings. And those, again, the minute you shut it down in one area, they pop up somewhere else.
So let me ask you this. With the physician community kind of being involved in a lot of these different areas, how much of that is the responsibility of the physician? Are they losing their license because they're referring stuff inappropriately? I mean,
So with the hospice, that's a big issue. We've been actually going after the referring physicians. So you'll see some of the recent, there was a bust here in LA about a month or so ago that Dr. Oz was, and many of you may have seen his cop style video of that.
I did.
But he was actually there when they took down some people. And what happened was, some of the physicians associated with that had as many as 30,000 patients that they were allegedly referring for. Now, in some cases, the physicians claim they didn't know their number was being used, and obviously that's for the courts and law enforcement to figure out. But in other cases, we were able to show that there really was. They were associated with dozens of home health entities and just signing off on the billings and letting their number be used. So there is a strong responsibility of the physician community to sort of self-police, I think, to a certain extent. But there's also a lot of this is organized crime, and it's organized groups who are doing this. They buy and sell these companies. They buy and sell the beneficiary numbers, and then as a result, they pay money, kickbacks, and other things to these doctors in exchange for their number.
This episode is sponsored by Solutions Group Services, healthcare leaders' go-to source for maximizing reimbursement and inspiring innovation. At Solutions Group Services, Our technology and consulting expertise help organizations recover millions in hidden revenue without disrupting their workflow. Through our flagship AI-powered tech product, Black Ink, we reveal the dollars stuck in insurance claims and give you the map to get them back. Because for healthcare leaders, they know leaving money on the table isn't an option for their organization. Learn more at solutionsgroup.com and discoverblackink.com.
So the physician, because that's always been something that we've always thought about, even in the transportation community. Like if a doctor's prescribing, they should be following the patient care. That's kind of the theme of our conference is doctors, data, leadership. But I think it gets down to leadership. And some of this stuff is organized crime. And how do you get, like, that is blatant fraud. But how much of it's waste and abuse? Like, it's being done correctly, but maybe there's waste in the system happening because it depends. Are y'all looking at that, or is it more just the fraud side?
The fraud has been the primary focus, but we want to get to the waste and abuse. So, again, keep in mind Medicare, Medicaid, and the marketplace, the 3 M's of CMS, if you will, are currently just shy of a $2 trillion spend. So we are huge in terms of our spend. And of that, we think about 100 billion with a B. 100 billion is waste, fraud, and abuse. Of that, I think the true fraud is probably less than half. The rest of it is people billing without proper documentation, billing at services above what they provided, unloaded miles on transportation, things like that. And that's abuse. It's not out and out fraud per se, but it's abuse because they're manipulating the system.
Okay. And then I'm going to pivot just for one more question as we're talking through this piece of it, is relative to when you're looking at the waste in the system and you get to it. So we've heard the $100 billion number and providers. How much of this should be, we're a free market country. How much of this is where we need to have more regulation around that? Do you guys have an opinion on that? Because sometimes I think it does need market consolidation, but then there's data that says maybe that pushes prices up, as well.
It's a hard balance. And interesting, I think, first foray into this will be our emergence with competitive bidding that's coming up in the next year or so. Because think about it. One of the things that Dr. Oz likes to talk about all the time is that there are twice as many durable medical equipment suppliers in Southern Florida than there are McDonald's.
Listen to this stat's going to blow your mind. There are 20 times more durable medical equipment providers in South Florida than McDonald's. You need 20 times more wheelchairs than burgers. It's just bizarre.
True fact. There are actually 4 times as many hospices in LA County as there are Starbucks. So, okay, one would argue maybe you don't need that kind of competition, but for durable medical equipment, competitive bidding will make it so that there's a lot less, but hopefully it will allow for better pricing and less abuse and waste on those types of things. I think the amount of fraud in DME, it's pretty limited to certain sectors at this point, but the rest of it, we're kind of hoping, we don't like to say that it's a fraud issue, but it's more of a pricing issue. So continuous glucose monitors, things like that, being able to have more competitive pricing. So I think things like that will help. And then we're just going to have to see, to your point, one of our goals is to not have more administrative burden. We don't want to over-regulate. We don't want to go too far because we want people to be able to have a free market. We want them to be able to compete. But you also have to do so in a way that provides good patient care. And that's where the balance is right now.
So let me tell you where Medicare Advantage fits into this. Where does it fit in your initiatives at all, or is it fitting in?
So I think it hasn't been a primary focus lately. However, if you recall back to the beginning of the last year when Dr. Oz came on board, one of the big things that we announced was that we were going big on our risk-adjusted data validation, or RADV audits. And that meant that instead of just auditing a certain number of the plans and a certain number of the claims, or looking at the risk diagnoses, we were instead going to do all of them. And we were going to do it for all the plan years, all the way back to 2018 forward. And that's what we've been doing. We have been actually looking at all of them. Now, part of that was because we had a regulation where we were using that to be able to hopefully extrapolate some of those findings. We have a court decision that has said we can't extrapolate, but it didn't say that we couldn't keep auditing or that we couldn't do recoveries. So what we are doing is we're making sure that the plans are giving us the correct diagnoses and that they are doing what they need to do. Dr. Oz has made it very clear. Medicare Advantage is very popular. It's 54% of our Medicare population. People should be able to do it, but we want to make sure the plans are they're telling us the right thing. They're giving us the right documentation. And there's a couple of ongoing litigation matters right now involving plans where there's questions about whether or not they've actually provided the right documentation. So I think for us, Medicare Advantage is an important part because we're trying to move towards value-based care more generally, but you have to do a trust but verify on it.
So let me ask you this. Are you guys using AI at all to look at different ways of holding, to me, it seems like to be a really good accountability tool possibly.
Absolutely.
How are you guys using AI?
Yeah, so
for that?
we have several different AI tools and like I said, machine learning to look at patient records and things like that. But we're doing it, as I mentioned before, in a trust but verify kind of way. I think AI is great. I'm a huge user of Claude. It's my new best friend.
I love Claude.
Claude helps me get through the day in a much more meaningful way because it summarizes things. It helps me to be able to clean up documents, et cetera. But you always want to check to make sure it's accurate. I had it do something for me on oxygen billing a couple of weeks ago, and it was really good, but a couple of the sites were wrong. And so and I think what I worry about when it comes to patient records, I don't want to rely 100% on AI. So when we find that there are issues, we have them validated by an actual clinician. But I think what's great is it can help us sort through those records and find those aberrancies so much faster. That's why we're able to do RADV now all the way back to 2018. Because if we had to do that all manually, there's no way that we would have enough reviewers to be able to do all that. But to be able to use AI to do the first screen and then have the reviewers come and look at the ones that it flags, it's a game changer.
Wow. Okay, I could sit here and talk to you all night, but I'm not going to. But last question. This is going to be a fun question.
Okay.
Tell us something fun that we may not know about Kim Brandt.
Oh, gosh. Well,
I know something, but
I was going to say, which one would you like me to focus on?
I want you to talk about you bake. Like,
Yes.
that's amazing to me.
So I am a massive cookie baker. Everybody's been joking. The reason we have so many cook-offs and bake-offs is because I love to bake, which is true. I am a cookie baker. Every year I have a cookie fest where I bake for 2 days and invite 100 of my closest friends. And nobody else brings cookies. I just bake them all. And then another fun fact along with that is I am part owner in a pie shop in Ohio.
Really? So what's
So-
your favorite pie?
My favorite pie, if I had to call it, it's peanut butter.
Ooh. Now I'm hungry.
Fresh strawberry. It's
Fresh-
a close tie between those two.
Now I'm hungry, and we're going to go eat. But thank you so much, Kim,
No,
for
thank
coming
you,
on my
Asbel.
podcast
It's a
and all the
pleasure.
great work that you guys are doing to eradicate fraud, waste, and abuse.
We appreciate it. It was my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely.